Welcome back to Stellar Horizons Campaign Game Playthrough, episode 42 and a half, Battle of Jupiter Correction. So, the big mistake I made, I rolled, I didn't really make any exact rules mistakes, but I certainly misinterpreted a die result and gave the advantage to the Americans when the Asians had actually won the tactics die roll. So, we're going to kind of redo the rest of the turn. We're going to fix that combat. We may adjust some movement. I think I'm not going to even mess with the Russians. I don't think anything that they did is going to change. And for the most part, I think everything else, I'm not going to come back over and like redo explorations and things like that. But the results of the battle are definitely changing, and so then where the Asians move, are they going to go to EO? And all that kind of stuff. So let's reset ourselves a little bit, which means that this CV7 is coming back from the dead. And then these American CV8s. But the results, just off the top of my head, means that, and we're going to put these mining CV4s back over here. One thing I noted in the last video, the exploration, I made a note about the rover, American rover at Haumea Makemake, thinking that for some reason it had malfunctioned in the previous turn. It did not malfunction in the previous turn, so the Americans are good to go there. So they're getting that political marker. And I think we gave the Americans, I think it was 4 victory points for the killing a CV7, and I think that's still likely to stand. We also gave, the Americans had 2 recalls with those biology, and I guess maybe one of the Asian ones got recalled as well. I'll have to double check that. Anyway, so the way that played out, we gave the Americans a 4 tactics points advantage, and when in fact it should have gone, the advantage was to the Asians. They would have had 2 tactics points. Since the Asians were trying to break out from the flyby box and go to EO, if they had had 3 tactics points, they would have avoided combat and gone to EO. Now the American fleet would have just, during the Americans' movement phase, they would have moved here, and then there would have been a combat which would have included these CV4s in the combat phase, but that would have been to the Asians' advantage, because the bigger that the fleet gets, the enemy fleet gets, the more tactics points that provides you. Anyway, so where we had left it was, we're going to keep the assignment. The Asians still have 6 fighters. The Americans are still going to do 5 fighters and 2 bombers, but now we're getting rid of this extra damage and the 2 tactics points that the Americans have, and the 2 tactics points, instead the Asians are not going to use it to assign damage. They're going to use it to allocate damage, because that makes a big difference in killing enemy ships. So what we're seeing now is, instead of the Asians are still inflicting 10 damage, but now the Americans are only doing 14. And of that 10 damage, the Americans assign 5 and the Asians assign 5, which normally wouldn't allow them to kill anything. But now that the Asians can use the 2 tactics points, and that glare is bad. Okay, hopefully that light level's a little better. Anyway, so it's going to be 14 points, but so the 10 that's being inflicted on the Americans, you'd split it up 5 and 5, but now the Asians are actually going to get to call the shots on 7 of it. So if the Asians can call 7 points of damage, then they'll be able to kill one of these CV6s. With the 15 damage, the Asians pick first, so they're going to pick, well, now it's going down to 14, so it'll end up being 7 and 7. So the Americans are still guaranteed to kill one of the CV7s. So we're going to return back to our damage allocation. And I'm just going to so I'm just lining up points of damage here. So we got 10 damage, kind of like that. So the Americans pick first. And they say, now here's the interesting thing. They can see that the Asians can do 7. If the Americans assign an initial point to a CV8, that means the Asians' 7 points get added, and they'd kill a CV8. So the Americans need to do a CV6. And I'm going to move these up a little bit. Now the Asians pick. Well, do they go after the same one? Sure. 2. I guess I'm going to. Then the Americans, they don't want to help the Asians out. Is it safe for the Americans now to assign damage to a CV8? Because the Asians would still get, I took it from the wrong column. I'm going to put 2 over there in the middle. 4, 5, 6, plus 1. So yeah, the Americans can now safely assign a point of damage to a CV8. Do they want to? I think they'll do 1 on this CV6. And the Asians take, and they'll just start going. They'll pick now the Americans, and they'll spread it around. And the Asians pick, they go there. And at this point, the Asians can assign the rest of the damage, I believe. Yeah. So the Asians get to pick the rest of the damage. And so they, well, that's interesting. They don't really need to, and they can save it for themselves. So the Americans go, the Asians go, the Americans go. At this point, anybody they pick is going to lose a drone. I think they'll take it on this one. And then the Asians go here, and that's going to kill that guy. So this is, yeah, this is definitely going to change things up. So we know that this guy, I'm just going to turn him upside down and remove that damage. Okay. So now we're going to set up again. And so we've got 14 damage. And the Asians still have 2 tactics points remaining. So will they be able to save a ship? I think the answer is yes. So this definitely changes things up. 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7. Okay, so I've kind of lined it up here again. This is the Americans. This is the 2 that would notionally go to the Americans, but the Asians have the option on, and then the Asians have all that. So by the same token, the Asians recognize that the Americans can absolutely kill a CV5, but they're not going to get a CV7 this time. But if the Asians don't start off with a CV5, then whatever the Asians pick first, the Americans can do 5. So if they pick the 6 first, they'll kill the 6. pick a 7, the Americans won't necessarily be able to kill a 7. Okay. So the Asians are going to go for a CV7. But the Americans can math it out and say, okay, well, we want to get the guaranteed 6. The Asians are going to spread it around a little bit. They pick a 6. The Americans have to go there. Sorry, I may not be doing a good job here with my picks. The Asians pick a 7. The Americans pick their 5. That's 3. The Asians pick the other 5. The Americans keep on going on the 5. The Asians, you can see the Americans only have one more pick. So the Americans will pick that, and the Asians are going to end up having 5 damage to assign across here. I don't know what the right answer is. We'll go 2 on that one. The Americans assign, and so that's 5 for that one, and that one's dead. And then the Asians use their 2 tactics points. That can't be right. They must have used 1 tactics point. No, I guess that's right, because I think the Asians just followed on. The Americans picked a CV6 first, because otherwise they would have lost an 8, and then the Asians were able to follow. Okay, so we've got a little more damage here to assign. I guess they'll do 2. They're getting rid of a bunch of. Maybe it makes more sense. 3. And then they'll put a little more damage on that. So now that's the situation, and both sides have lost a ship. We've already given the Americans the victory points. Well, we gave them 4 victory points for a CV6, but they ended up only killing a CV5. So it's only 2 victory points for a CV5 and 3 for a 6. So the Asians are going to get 3 victory points. And we're going to take 2 away from the Americans. So on a victory point basis, the Asians came out ahead. From a remaining combat status, 15, 22 minus 4 is 28. Or how about 18? Is that right? 15 plus 7 is 22. Minus 4 points is 18 combat factors, and they have 14, 24 minus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, so the Asians are way down now on combat factors. So the Asians are going to stop. They're not going to continue to try to press for EO. And instead, they will that guy's got a 3, 2, 3, and a 1. Well, first, before they move, we need to do the recalls. So 3 rolls on this CB5. 22, no. 35, no. 87, no. 2 rolls of 4, so this one recalls. And we've already given the Asians 1 biology. This one gets 3 rolls, a 1, so this one recalls. And the Asians are going to need another biology marker. Which is a 3, and 1 roll on this guy. A 9, wow. So another biology marker. So clearly the Asians are running for it now. Okay, the Americans, the Polaris, 67, the Intrepid, 33, Constitution gets 2 rolls, 44, and 31. So the Americans, and I think the other thing that's just that so this would be a thing that I missed last time. If you lose a ship, do you get an engineering marker or anything? Yeah. Nope. Yeah, for each CV or base you lose, okay, earn equivalent engineering markers. 1 for CV2s and 3s, 2 for 4s and 5s. Two for 4s and 5s. So the Asians are going to get 2 engineering markers, and I guess it says etc. 6 is presumably is 3. But I don't know exactly how to interpret the etc. when we have sizes 6, 7, 8, and I guess the Asians have a 9. I mean, not the Asians, the Japanese, I think, have a size 9. But we know what to do right now. So 2 engineering markers for the Asians. A 1 and a 1, and then 3 engineering markers for the Americans. And we took the Americans' biology markers away a minute ago. The Americans get a 2 engineering, 2 engineering, and a 2 engineering. Okay. So we'll take these ships off because they've been destroyed. And so everybody's sitting here in the flyby box. The Asians now can choose to do a different movement, and they want to head back to the asteroid belt. And this is where I still have a question. Can the same fleet attempt to intercept them? After any interception combats are resolved, remaining ships in the intercepted fleets can complete their movement or choose to cancel the move and even make another different move if so desired. Okay. In parentheses, which could result in another interception attempt. So I think the answer is clearly yes. So the Americans, they don't have any ships that are not ready, so they are able to make an interception attempt, and I think they will because they have such an advantage. So if we look at that, this is going to end up being worse for the Asians than last turn, probably. So target number is 4, and then we add in 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So now the target number is a 9. How many drones do the Americans have now? 1, 4, or 5 total. That one's gone. So they've got 5 drones, so the Americans get to subtract 2 from their die roll. And although these guys are reserved, I don't think that makes, we'll just flip them back over. So 2, 1, and 1. I'll put the reserved guys up here. I don't think that means that they're totally, from a defensive standpoint, I don't think that they are out. So they've lost 1 drone there. This one has no drone, so they've got 1 drone, 1 drone, and 1 drone. I am feeling like I've flipped some damage markers inadvertently. The Asians lost a CV5, so there should still be 14 minus 5, 9 points of damage, and I see 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm pretty sure this guy had a 3. That looks more correct. So the Asians are sitting on 1 drone and 1 drone, 2 drones. So they get to subtract 1 from their die roll. So again, we're going to roll. This is going to be an interception because the Americans, the target number is a 9, and the Americans get to subtract 2. Red die is the Asians. So the Asians are at 6 and the Americans are at 5. So that's the advantages to the Americans. The Americans' 5's reduced down to a 3, and the Asians go from 6 to 5. So we start off with an American tactics point advantage of 2. Both sides have the same tactics point tech, so that's going to offset, but you also earn per full 7 of enemy size. So we've got 16 and 6, so that's going to be 3 tactics points for the Asians, and this is going to be 2. Nope, it's going to be 3. So those are going to offset. So it ends up that the Americans have a 2 tactics point advantage. And I'm just looking again, I want to make sure, just because the Asian CVs are recalled does not prevent them from contributing their combat strength or anything like that, or their drones. It would only prevent them from initiating combat. So we're going to go with that, and I apologize. I know last time I was kind of showing the, or trying to show the chart. So the Americans have a 2 tactics point advantage, and they are going to reserve those 2 tactics points for assigning damage, because that, as we have seen in a big battle, is what seems to be more valuable. So let me get rid of that. So let's figure out what this is going to look like. Nope, that's not a good place. How about there? Okay, so combat strength for the Americans is, what do we say? 1522 minus the 4 is 18. They get plus 5 for the tech, and I'm sitting here looking at the chart. I'm trying to, there was a modifier, I thought, on the combat. Yeah, plus 1 for each enemy unit in the combat after the first. Wait. So that's going to be plus 3, right? Add up your combat values, add 1 die roll, plus 1 for each enemy unit in the combat after the first. Okay. So there's, after the first is plus 3 for the Americans, plus a d10. The Asians are at 14, plus 10 is 24 minus, I think we said 9. 24 minus 9 is 15, plus 5 plus 2 plus the d10. And the Asians have, what do they have for drones? None, 1, 2. So they've got 2 fighters, which are canceling damage. And the Americans have 1, 5, 5. And they are going to assign their 5 drones as I think they'll do 4 fighters and a bomber. And then they have 2 tactics points. So let's roll the dice. They're going to do, again, it's strike combat. So red die for the Asians. They get a 10. So that is, and the Americans only got a 3. So that's making things continue to be interesting. Okay, the Asians had 22 plus 10 is 32. So that's 11 hits inflicted. That's where we need this. We won't make inflicted. And the Americans are at 18 plus 8 is 26. Plus 3 is 29. And the Americans have inflicted 9 hits. Now, from the Americans' 9 hits, we subtract 2 and then add 1. So it's going to take it to an 8 hits inflicted onto the Asians. The Americans had 4 fighters, so we're subtracting 11 minus 4, and that puts us to 7 hits inflicted. So the Americans, we assign damage to the Americans first. And that is 7 hits. The Americans get to go first. So we're going to take our 7, we're going to line up our 7 damage. And the Americans get to go first. And they can, if they want, they could take up to 2 of this damage and assign it themselves, but I don't think they need to, and they'll probably want to. I don't think any of the American stuff is really a danger, so even if they let the Asians assign all 3, there's nothing that the Asians are going to kill. But I guess that probably matters. If they pick a CV8 plus 3, still not going to happen. If they go for the 6, it's 2 plus 3, not going to happen. So there's not too much here. The Asians will go for the CV3. Actually, they're going to go for that CV8. The Americans are going to pick CV6. The Asians will pick the CV6. Americans will do an 8. The Asians will also do the 8. And the Americans will put the last one on that guy. And here's the mistake that we just made. We need to roll recalls, but I need to differentiate between the damage that we just placed and the damage that was previously on there, because we're not rolling for that. Well, it was 7 damage. I think it was probably... Does that add up? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7... Or maybe it was like that. I may be off on a damage between the Polaris and the Constitution by 1. Okay, so I'll got to keep track of that as well. I'm going to go ahead and flip this to a 3, flip that to a 3, and we're going to use those again. So now we've got 8 hits that we're applying to the Asians. So we're going to line up our 4 and 4. The Asians pick first, but this time 2 of it is up for the Americans to decide. And this time I'm going to put the damage that people have already inflicted on the ships, and we'll assign the new damage that way. So the Americans can see that they can kill CV5. They can also, actually, if they have 4 plus 2, 2 goes there and kills the 5, and 4 goes on the 7 and kills the 7. So yeah, the Americans are going to do okay here. And then the Asians. So the Asians start off and they go 1 there. Yeah, and the Americans, I'm going to take it over here to the side. Americans, the Asians, pick another. They're going to go for the CV6. The Americans go for the 5, and then the Americans say, okay, we're going to use our last tactics point and assign these 4 ourselves, and they can go for the 6 or the 7. So obviously they pick the 7 and kill the 7. So this second battle, so that guy is going to be dead, and this guy is going to be dead. And those are already recalled, so there's no point in rolling recalls for them. The Americans are going to earn 4 victory points, and this is a place where a table would have been really nice. Been pretty simple to put a table in here for these post-combat effects, like for engineering and victory point markers, instead of putting all that as a paragraph of text. Okay, victory points for the 2 for the 5 and 4 for the 7, so that's 6 victory points. And then they earn for the CV5, 2, 4, 5, so 6, 7 is presumably a 3. So they're going to earn 5 more engineering markers. And the Americans are getting 6 victory points. So the follow-up engagement here was devastating. So this guy lives with 2, and this guy ends up living with 3. The rest of these damage markers we're getting rid of. We need to pull the 5. 5 engineering markers for the Asians. 2, 1, 2, 1, and 2. And we need to roll some recalls. So 3 rolls for the Polaris, right? A 3. So that guy's going to flip. The Intrepid gets 3 rolls. 97, 84, 51, and 1 roll for the Constitution. 77. So the Americans get a biology marker. It's a 3. And so now this guy's got 4 damage. This guy's got 4 damage. This guy's got a total of 3 damage. And the Asian ships then get to continue on with their movement. And as we recall, they're both recalled. And so they're heading back to the asteroid belt. And these guys are all sitting in the flyby box. So that was just in our movement. That was the Asians' movement phase that triggered all of that combat. And they would have done, you remember they came down here. I don't think there's any other Asian movement that we're changing up. The Russians do all their things. And then in the Americans' movement phase, the Americans are quite happy that they have, killed 3 Asian ships. So these guys are all going to return to base so that they can start to get repaired and fixed. But we, because of the Asian presence in Jupiter last time, the Americans did not move that guy. But they certainly would at this point. So what do the Americans need? Well, they need 3, 6, 7, 10, 11 ore just to repair all that damage. And they don't have very much ore. They got 3 there. Although they're doing pretty good with ore here. we let them mine, but that was after they did some mining. So we're not gonna. They probably, I think it was 5 and 1. So would they bring the 6 ore back? I think the answer is yes. So they had 6 ore, and so one of these guys would have returned over here with 6 ore, and the other guy would come here, and then we're going to leave them with the 3 ore. We're just going to kind of assume the same roles, which is going to mean that there is 6 ore back at the base, and the 2 ships were just different ships. So they're going to get their 6 ore, and then they're sitting over here on 3 ore that they mined this turn. In the exploration, and I think that that's how we're going to fix the mistake. I don't think it, maybe it turned out a little worse for the, certainly in the short term it turned out worse for the Asians, but they were able to kill an American ship, which that didn't happen before. I think in the next, if we had played on from the previous situation, the Americans were going to bring those 2 CV-8s back over here and engage. You know, there's going to be a big battle or something over here. And I think that would have also gone equally horribly for the Asians. So the first round of combat wasn't too terrible. I think the lesson there, if the Asians had just, well, they would have still been in the same situation. You know, by trying to move and getting into a combat with a movement, they could have stopped, and then the Americans would still have searched for them in the combat round. So those tactics points, that tactic, especially on a big fleet battle, just getting to assign a couple of points of damage the way you want to over your enemy, that's really impactful on these big fleet battles, because that means you get to kill ships or prevent yours from being killed. I think, wow, that's 42-minute correction just for a couple of battles, but I'll go ahead and post this right up, and I guess I'm going to wait a couple of days, see if there's any comments, see if there's any further corrections that we need to do. So I guess, yeah, if you've got comments and corrections or rules errors, because, yeah, I guess the biggest question I have is, would the Americans have been able to do that second interception attempt when the Asians decided to change their movement and leave the system? But I think the answer is yes, and so I feel pretty good, but I certainly could be wrong. Anyway, the Asians have earned, on the upside, the Asians have earned a lot of engineering points. But they earned 3 victory points, but that was a net, I think, 5 victory points to the Americans across those 2 battles. Yeah. So thanks for watching, and talk to you guys later.